Let me come then to the cause of industry. India Inc. wants to know today from leaders like yourself who perhaps understand Maoism and the threat of Maoism best in this country. Do they have to fear? Should India Inc. be afraid of the kind of Maoist violence that's spreading?
India has nothing to fear. I am only fearing that the Maoists are derailing their entire path which communists in India should follow, which the left movement in India should follow.
Do businessmen in India, do India and Indian industry, does that have to fear?
Let us not go into that. When history will be written, you will see that many of the industrialists, so-called, have been paying the Maoists also. You will be surprised to know that. Maybe for ransom, maybe for their own protection money, maybe for other reasons. It is not they who are fighting.
So you're saying essentially, Indian industry, while claiming to be increasingly afraid of the Maoist violence in many parts of the country, actually is supporting, at least monetarily, the Maoist movement.
You see, the whole point is, the areas where the industrialists want to go in are those precise areas, you see, where the Maoists are also operating.
That's right.
Why are they trying to go in there? Those areas are rich in raw material resources. All our mineral resources happen to be in those areas. And yet, this is the contradiction which you must first of all turn your attention to. That precisely with all these resources over the earth, under the earth, everything there, they continue to remain the most backward areas. And the people continue to remain the most exploited in those areas. That is exactly the issue which I have been trying to say. And that is why I said that there are socio-economic dimensions to the problem. And the government must realize that. This is as far as the government is concerned. As far as the entire communist movement is concerned, I am saying that the Maoists have to realize that they are derailing the cause of communism much more than anybody else. They are harming that cause. That is my basic criticism. They are wrong about the Indian situation. They are wrong in their assessment about the Indian situation. They are wrong in their analysis. But I do think that they started by thinking of fighting against inhuman exploitation in those areas. The path is not right.
What do you say then to Indian industry about which fears, what do you say then to Indian industry which fears Maoist violence and fears that it will spread?
As I have told you, see, the Indian industrialists do not fear them. Do not fear them. Otherwise, they would never think of going into those areas.
What would you say to Indian business which fears that the path that India has taken to grow, maybe in the next 2 years, back to 9% growth, will be derailed if the Maoist violence continues? What do you say to Indian business?
Well, let me tell you, see, that it won't be derailed because of that. It will be derailed because the government is following a path of neoliberal capitalism, which I think is not suited at all to our Indian conditions. It brings about more disparities. You are measuring, you see, growth on the basis of GDP, but you are not measuring growth, you see, on the basis of all the microeconomic other indices, which show that our poverty, our unemployment, our starvation, our hunger, all these things continue. In fact, in the whole Human Development Index, India is quite low. How do you explain all that? These are the things, you see, which require explanation.
There is a criticism that left leaders refuse to accept growing evidence that Maoists are getting support covertly, overtly from countries like Nepal and China.
I have not seen any shred of evidence. I don't know what you are talking about evidence. What is the evidence? If you are talking of arms, from where did the Alpha get its arms? From where do the other sections, you see, who are indulging in insurgency, say in Manipur or in the northeast, from where are they getting their arms? So just because these people call themselves Maoists, they are getting arms from China. You can't, you see, China is too big a country to be just, you see, portrayed as a whipping boy for all these things. There is no shred of evidence.
Let me ask you then, Prime Minister Singh says that there has to be an effort, a real effort to reconstruct areas where Maoist activity is the most violent. Home Minister Chidambaram says that there perhaps could be a two-pronged effort. One is the military power of the state to curb the violence and parallel development work. Do you think any of this will work?
So you will go into those areas, you see, in one hand you will hold a gun, and in the other you will hold, you see, the carrot for development. This won't work, you see. The gun will have to be abandoned. You can't, you see, develop an area on the point, through the barrel of a gun. Just as revolution won't come through the barrel of a gun in the way they are talking about.
Do you believe today that the age of armed struggle, revolution through the barrel of a gun, as you just mentioned, is over, Mr. Bardhan?
Not in the least. Whether a revolution will be peaceful or non-peaceful depends all on the circumstances. I think that in India, there is enough scope to use the ballot. I think in India, there is enough scope to work through, you see, the whole democratic system that we are exercising.
So there's no need for the bullet?
There are very serious threats to this democracy. Let us not take our own democracy also for granted. Like our freedom, you see, it requires to be, vigilance is the eternal price that will have to be paid. For instance, you see, what about the money power that is growing? Now you see, even for contesting a municipal election, people are spending crores. Who are they? And if that is the way you see elections are going to be fought, do you think that the common people will ever fight elections? You see, many organizations have investigated and found out that 350 people elected to the parliament out of 543 are people who are croropatis and multi-croropatis. How do you explain this? That is a threat. And Indian democracy requires to be defended, you see, from all these threats. That is why recently, you see, I talked also about the mining mafia, you see, which is a big threat to democracy. And incidentally, the mining mafia operates precisely in these areas.
What do you believe? People think the Maoist threat is the biggest threat India faces at the moment. In a line, if you were to tell the Prime Minister something, what would be your solution?
The biggest threat that India faces today is the threat of poverty, of unemployment, of starvation, of hunger, of food. And I think that food, land, jobs, these are the three main issues before the people. These issues require to be solved. And if these issues can be solved, they can be only solved not by the path that is being followed by the government today, the capitalist path, the neoliberal path that is incapable of solving this question. It has been shown.
What is the solution to Maoist violence?
That will solve the problem of Maoism, because that will bring about development in all these areas.
A B Bardhan, thanks very much indeed. Always illuminating.